Imagine a world just a few short years from now. The year is 2030. The headlines are stark. Geopolitical tensions have escalated. AI-driven automation has reshaped entire industries. And the very concept of money, as we know it, has undergone a radical transformation. Cash is a relic, replaced by central bank digital currencies, inextricably linked to a universal digital identity. This isn't science fiction. It's the trajectory we're on, a path accelerated by technological leaps and seismic shifts in global power dynamics. Most people, caught in the daily grind, are entirely unprepared for the profound economic and societal restructuring that is not just coming, but is already underway. They are building their financial futures on foundations that will crumble under the weight of these converging forces. But what if you could see beyond the immediate horizon? What if you could identify the fundamental assets, the true stores of value that are not only resilient, but will thrive in this new paradigm? This isn't about chasing fleeting trends or speculative bubbles. This is about understanding the deep currents of history, technology, and human psychology to secure your wealth, your freedom, and your future. Because while the world around us is being reset, certain timeless principles and the assets they represent will not just survive, but will become the bedrock of true prosperity. The vast majority of individuals today operate under a dangerous illusion that the financial rules of the past will govern the future. This cognitive bias, known as anchoring, keeps us tethered to outdated models, preventing us from seeing the monumental shifts occurring right before our eyes. We anchor our expectations to the stability of the post-World War II era, to the predictable cycles of inflation and interest rates, to the sanctity of privacy in transactions. But this anchor is dragging us towards a financial shipwreck. History, however, offers stark warnings that these assumptions are fragile. Consider the 1933 gold confiscation in the United States, where Executive Order 6102 forced citizens to surrender their gold, effectively nationalizing a private asset. Or the 1971 Nixon shock, which unilaterally ended the convertibility of the US dollar to gold, ushering in an era of pure fiat currency and unprecedented monetary expansion. These weren't isolated incidents. They were pivotal moments demonstrating the state's ultimate power over perceived private wealth and the very nature of money. Consider the confluence of crises we face. Geopolitical instability, driven by resource scarcity and ideological divides, is not merely a regional phenomenon. It's a global reordering that disrupts supply chains, fuels inflation, and weaponizes trade. The rise of artificial intelligence, while promising unprecedented productivity, simultaneously threatens to displace millions of jobs, fundamentally altering the value of human labor and exacerbating wealth inequality. This isn't just about factory workers. It's about white-collar professions, creative industries, and even decision-making roles. The psychological impact of this impending obsolescence, the fear of loss of livelihood and status, is already palpable and will only intensify. Simultaneously, we are hurtling towards a cashless society, driven by convenience, efficiency, and, crucially, control. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are not just a technological upgrade. They represent a paradigm shift in monetary policy, granting governments unprecedented oversight and potential control over individual spending. Coupled with the inevitable rollout of universal digital IDs, every transaction, every interaction, every facet of your economic life could become transparent and traceable. The framing effect here is critical. Presented as progress and security, the underlying erosion of financial autonomy and privacy is often overlooked. The problem, then, is not merely economic. It's an existential threat to individual sovereignty in an increasingly interconnected and controlled world. Your current assets, your savings in traditional banks, your investments in conventional markets are all vulnerable to these systemic pressures. They are built on assumptions that are rapidly becoming obsolete. The question is, how do you navigate this unseen storm? How do you protect yourself when the very definition of wealth is being rewritten? To understand what assets will not just survive, but thrive in this coming era, we must first discard the confirmation bias that leads us to seek out information confirming our existing beliefs about wealth. We must instead embrace a radical open-mindedness, a willingness to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The period between 2030 and 2032 is not an arbitrary date. It represents a critical juncture where several long-term cycles are projected to converge: the long-term debt cycle, the internal order cycle, and the external world order cycle. These convergences historically lead to significant reconfigurations of wealth and power. In this environment, where traditional financial instruments are increasingly susceptible to political intervention, technological disruption, and inflationary pressures, we must identify assets that possess intrinsic value, offer genuine autonomy, and are resilient to systemic shocks. These are not merely investments. They are strategic allocations designed for a world undergoing a profound reset. Here are the 4 assets that, when understood through the lens of history, economics, and psychology, offer the greatest potential for survival and prosperity. The first category of assets that will prove indispensable are hard, tangible assets, with a particular emphasis on physical gold and silver. This might sound like a reversion to archaic thinking, but it is a lesson repeatedly taught by history, yet often ignored due to the recency bias that prioritizes short-term gains over long-term preservation. When fiat currencies are debased, when trust in institutions erodes, and when geopolitical tensions escalate, the demand for universally recognized stores of value surges. Gold and silver have served this role for millennia, not because of government decree, but because of their inherent properties: scarcity, durability, divisibility, and portability. They are outside the control of any single government or central bank, making them immune to the digital confiscation or programmatic control inherent in CBDCs. Consider the implications of a cashless society and digital ID. If your entire financial footprint is digital, it is vulnerable to censorship, freezes, or even direct taxation at the point of transaction. The 2013 Cyprus bank bail-in served as a chilling precedent, where depositors' savings were forcibly converted into bank equity to recapitalize failing institutions. More recently, the 2022 freezing of Russian central bank assets by Western nations demonstrated the weaponization of global finance, revealing how even sovereign reserves are not immune to political intervention. These events underscore the critical need for assets that exist outside the direct control of centralized authorities. Physical gold and silver, held outside the digital system, offer a crucial layer of financial privacy and autonomy. They are a hedge against the erosion of purchasing power caused by inflation, which is an almost inevitable consequence of the massive debt monetization and quantitative easing policies pursued globally. The loss aversion bias often makes individuals hesitant to allocate capital to assets that don't offer immediate, high returns. However, the primary role of gold and silver in this context is not capital appreciation, but capital preservation, a distinction often lost in bull markets. Their value is not derived from a promise, but from their physical reality and historical acceptance as money. The second critical asset class is productive, decentralized real estate, specifically agricultural land and strategic rural properties. As urban centers become increasingly dense, reliant on complex supply chains, and potentially vulnerable to both natural disasters and social unrest, the value proposition of self-sufficiency and localized production will skyrocket. This isn't about speculative real estate plays in metropolitan areas, which are often inflated by easy credit and vulnerable to interest rate hikes and population shifts. This is about land that can produce food, provide shelter, and offer a degree of independence from centralized systems. The psychological underpinnings here are profound. The scarcity principle dictates that as arable land becomes more constrained by climate change, urbanization, and geopolitical fragmentation, its value will appreciate significantly. Furthermore, the inherent security and autonomy offered by owning productive land appeals to a deep-seated human need for self-preservation and control, especially in an era where digital identities and cashless systems could lead to unprecedented levels of societal control. The ability to grow your own food, access clean water, and generate independent energy sources becomes a form of wealth that cannot be easily confiscated or devalued by external forces. This asset class also benefits from the endowment effect, where people value what they own more highly, fostering a stronger sense of security and resilience. Investing in agricultural land is a long-term play, a hedge against food inflation, supply chain disruptions, and the potential for social instability. It represents a tangible connection to the most fundamental human needs, a value proposition that transcends economic cycles and technological fads. The third asset, often overlooked in traditional financial discussions, is specialized, irreplaceable human skills and knowledge, particularly those that are AI resistant. As AI advances, the labor market will undergo a brutal restructuring. Routine, predictable, and data-driven tasks will be automated, leading to widespread displacement. This creates a powerful availability heuristic, where people overestimate the security of their current jobs because they are readily available in their experience. However, the skills that will retain and increase their value are those that require uniquely human attributes: creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving, emotional intelligence, ethical reasoning, and interdisciplinary synthesis. These are the domains where AI, despite its rapid progress, still struggles to replicate genuine human capacity. Think of skills in advanced engineering, bespoke craftsmanship, complex strategic consulting, high-level scientific research, artistic creation, or deep philosophical inquiry. These are not merely technical proficiencies. They are expressions of human ingenuity and adaptability. Furthermore, the ability to understand, manage, and ethically deploy AI itself will become a highly prized skill. This asset is not something you can buy. It is something you cultivate through continuous learning, deliberate practice, and a commitment to lifelong intellectual growth. It offers a form of personal capital that is portable, adaptable, and immune to external confiscation. The psychological benefit is immense: a sense of purpose, mastery, and continued relevance in a rapidly changing world. This is a direct counter to the fear of obsolescence that AI generates. Your intellectual capital, your unique ability to create, innovate, and connect, will be a non-depreciating asset in a world where everything else is being commoditized. The fourth asset, and perhaps the most controversial for some, is decentralized digital currencies, specifically true cryptocurrencies, with strong fundamentals. This is not a blanket endorsement of every altcoin or speculative digital token. Instead, it refers to a select few cryptocurrencies that embody the principles of decentralization, censorship resistance, and a fixed or predictable supply, operating on robust, transparent blockchain networks. Bitcoin, as the progenitor, exemplifies many of these characteristics. Its value proposition is fundamentally different from CBDCs. While CBDCs are centralized, programmable, and controlled by governments, true cryptocurrencies offer an alternative financial rail that is permissionless, immutable, and borderless. In a world moving towards digital ID and cashless systems, the ability to transact and store value outside the traditional banking system becomes paramount. This addresses the framing effect, where government-controlled digital currencies are presented as the only viable future. True cryptocurrencies offer a counter-narrative: financial freedom and resistance to state overreach. They are a hedge against the potential for financial repression, capital controls, and the erosion of privacy. The herd mentality often drives people into speculative crypto bubbles, but a discerning approach focuses on the underlying technology, the network effects, and the long-term vision of projects that genuinely aim to decentralize power and provide financial sovereignty. Their scarcity, particularly for assets like Bitcoin, with a capped supply, acts as a powerful hedge against inflation, mirroring the properties of gold in the digital realm. This asset class requires a deep understanding of technology and economics, and a strong conviction to withstand market volatility. But its potential to preserve and grow wealth in a digitally controlled future is unparalleled. It is a bet on the enduring human desire for freedom and autonomy, even in the face of increasing centralization. Understanding these four asset classes is merely the first step. The true power lies in their strategic application within your own financial ecosystem. This is where we move from theoretical insight to actionable strategy, countering the bystander effect, where individuals assume someone else will solve the problem, or that the system will self-correct. Personal responsibility and proactive planning are paramount. First, regarding hard, tangible assets, gold and silver, Your immediate action should be to assess your current exposure to fiat currency risk. This isn't about selling everything and burying gold in your backyard, but about prudent diversification. Allocate a meaningful portion of your wealth, perhaps 200%, to physical gold and silver. Crucially, take physical possession or use highly reputable, audited, and segregated storage solutions outside the traditional banking system. Do not rely on paper gold or ETFs that are merely claims on gold. In a systemic crisis, those claims may prove worthless. Understand the difference between investment and insurance. Physical precious metals are your financial insurance against systemic collapse and currency debasement. This is a long-term play, a hedge against the erosion of trust and value, not a short-term speculative trade. Second, for productive, decentralized real estate. This requires a more significant commitment, but the returns in terms of security and autonomy are unparalleled. Begin by researching regions with strong agricultural potential, access to water, and a degree of political stability. Consider properties that offer the ability to grow food, potentially generate renewable energy, and provide a retreat from urban vulnerabilities. This doesn't necessarily mean becoming a full-time farmer overnight. It could involve investing in fractional ownership of agricultural land or acquiring a smaller rural property that can be developed over time. The key is productive capacity and decentralization, reducing reliance on fragile, centralized supply chains. This also involves cultivating practical skills related to self-sufficiency, which further enhances the value of this asset. The endowment effect will naturally make you value this asset more as you invest time and effort into it, creating a virtuous cycle of security and self-reliance. Third, the cultivation of specialized, irreplaceable human skills and knowledge. This is perhaps the most critical and overlooked asset. In an AI-dominated future, your intellectual capital is your ultimate hedge. Begin by honestly assessing your current skill set. Identify areas where your expertise is unique, where human creativity, empathy, or complex reasoning are indispensable. If your skills are easily automatable, prioritize reskilling and upskilling. Focus on interdisciplinary knowledge, the ability to connect disparate fields, and the capacity for innovation. This is an ongoing investment, a commitment to lifelong learning. Consider fields like advanced AI ethics, complex systems design, bespoke craftsmanship, strategic human-AI collaboration, or deep scientific research. Your goal is to become indispensable, to possess knowledge and abilities that cannot be replicated by algorithms. This is a direct antidote to the fear of obsolescence and provides a profound sense of purpose and agency. Finally, decentralized digital currencies, true cryptocurrencies. Approach this asset class with extreme caution and rigorous due diligence, avoiding the herd mentality that often leads to irrational exuberance and subsequent losses. Focus on cryptocurrencies with proven decentralization, robust security, a fixed or predictable supply, and a clear value proposition beyond mere speculation. Bitcoin, due to its unparalleled decentralization, fixed supply, and long track record, stands out as a primary candidate. Research other projects that genuinely aim to build censorship-resistant, permissionless financial infrastructure. Understand the technology, the network effects, and the macroeconomic implications. Crucially, learn how to self-custody your digital assets using hardware wallets, removing them from centralized exchanges that are vulnerable to hacks, regulatory freezes, or corporate insolvency. This is about reclaiming financial sovereignty in the digital age, not about getting rich quick. It is a strategic allocation against the potential for financial repression and the overreach of state-controlled digital currencies. We stand at the precipice of a monumental transformation. The forces of war, AI cashless societies, and digital ID are not distant threats. They are active agents reshaping our present and dictating our future. The illusion of stability, perpetuated by confirmation bias and anchoring to past paradigms, is a luxury we can no longer afford. The choice before us is clear: to passively observe the unfolding reset, or to proactively position ourselves for resilience and prosperity. The four assets we have discussed: hard, tangible assets like physical gold and silver, productive, decentralized real estate, specialized, irreplaceable human skills and knowledge, and true decentralized digital currencies are not a magic bullet. They are strategic pillars built on timeless principles of value, autonomy, and resilience. They represent a diversified approach to wealth preservation and growth in an era of unprecedented uncertainty. Each asset offers a unique hedge against the specific vulnerabilities of the coming decade, from inflationary pressures and geopolitical instability to technological displacement and digital authoritarianism. Your financial future, and indeed your personal freedom, will increasingly depend on your ability to think critically, act independently, and adapt swiftly. Do not succumb to the bystander effect. Take ownership of your financial destiny. Begin today by educating yourself further, by assessing your current portfolio, and by making deliberate choices to reallocate your resources towards these foundational assets. The time for complacency is over. The time for strategic action is now. The world is resetting. Will you be ready to not just survive, but to thrive? What steps will you take today to secure your future in this evolving landscape? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us collectively navigate the unseen storm. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep insights, and share it with anyone who needs to hear this critical message. Your future depends on it.